Welcome to Relocating to Disney. Well, we haven't been going to the parks or any place lately. The wife's been a little under the weather, so we've just been hanging out at home. Behind me, you can see the permanent light project is finished. So in this video, I'm going to take you through that permanent light project. I'm going to start with a little montage of building and putting in and installing those lights. Then I'll get into what kinds of tools you need, and then I'm also going to go over some costs. Now, this isn't going to be a complete how-to video. For that, there's plenty of other better videos out there on YouTube, and I encourage you to go seek those out. But let's get started. Today, we are hanging permanent Christmas lights on the house. Why? Because I'm sick and tired of climbing up and down ladders to put Christmas lights on the house. So we're going to do it one more time and then never again. And that's the permanent Christmas tree light solution. Now, you can have a contractor come and do it. And I've had contractors come out and quote me almost $4,000 to put up these lights. And I'm going to do it myself. The flip side of that is I'm going to have to walk up and down a ladder about 1 million times. Now, normally I'd like to do videos that show you how to do something. And I'd love to show you how to put permanent Christmas tree lights or permanent lighting on your house. The fact is, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And there's people on YouTube and on the internet who really do know what they're doing. And I'll try to link them to you. Because if I showed you how to do it, you're going to make all the mistakes that I'm going to be making. And that just isn't fair. Now, this project has some challenges. One is, the wife isn't completely sold on this. She doesn't want the front of the house to look bad. So this lighting has to be pretty much hidden as much as possible. You can't see it from the street. And while everybody says, yeah, you won't be able to see it, I have never done this, so I can't guarantee her that this is going to look good or that you're not going to see it from the street. I can't promise that. Yet, if this doesn't look good, I'm going to be in the doghouse for a very long time. And that's been made very clear to me. So I got a little bit of apprehension of doing this project right up front. Besides the fact of, hanging off a ladder and all that other stuff, now if it doesn't look really good, I got that hanging over my head. So the problem I have with electronics, and this is where it really comes down to, do you know what you're doing? And I don't, is the computer chip that I'm using to run the lights. Well, it doesn't have a voltage regulator on it. It doesn't have fuses on it. It doesn't have things that would protect the strip under various conditions. And I didn't know that. Kind of found that out after I ordered everything. So I've had to order these DigiQuad boards. And the DigiQuad boards come with the controllers already on them. Well, I purchased the controllers. I just want the digi board and I'll plug my controller into it. No, the only place I could find these digi boards come with the controllers too. So I guess I'm going to have a bunch of extra controllers. So what you do is you get these metal channels, you hang them on the house, and then you take the LED strips, and these are waterproof, addressable, individually addressable LED strips. And you run them inside the channel. They have a sticky back and they just stick right to it. And then on the top of this, you snap in a diffuser, and then, this is hung on the house and it looks all nice and neat, and it's good for years and years to go. I'm up here in the garage attic, and it's hot, and it's dirty, it's disgusting. But I just keep telling myself I'm saving thousands of dollars. Halloween, and the neighbors were stopping by telling us how much they loved how the house looked when it was all lit up for Christmas. Now, I strung lights on the New York house for years. I was really looking forward to not having to do that here in Florida. But sounds like the neighborhood has a certain expectation on our property. So I decided to string the lights one time. We're going to do permanent lights. Permanent Christmas lights that you put up and you never take them down. And then you can use them throughout the year. But the point is you don't have to keep taking them up, taking them down. Had a couple people come out, give us quotes. Quotes were around $4,000. And I said, you know what? I can do it a lot cheaper than that. And if you can't see it, I'm going to point to it. Right there it is. That is the lights. And from the street, you can't even see them. But at night, when you turn them on, yeah, they're very noticeable. They look like standard Christmas lights. But all the rest of the year, you don't really even notice that they're up there. So we've been researching that. It took about, 3 weeks or so to research how to do this. And then we set aside 2 weeks to get these lights up because we work. And so really all we have is weekends and evenings. And by the time I get out of work, it's dark. So we really don't have evenings. So really just 2 weekends and the long Thanksgiving weekend being one of them to get all these lights up. So that's what we've been working on. I'll show you one thing that's going to be a challenge now as I walk over here. And that is, I got to get lights up on that peak. And the problem is, there's a tree, right? There's the tree. And I had the landscaper come out with the intention of trimming that tree back so I could get the lights up there. And he trimmed every tree on the property except that one. So now I'm stuck. It's going to be a heck of a challenge to try to get the lights up there. So I don't think a lighter is going to work. I'm probably going to have to pay a lot of money, get maybe a bucket on a boom if I can rent one of those, which means now the project is just going to go up even a few more $100. So there's two kinds of chips you can get out there to control your LED lights. This one's the 8266. And this one is the ESP32. ESP32 is more advanced. Don't ask me how or why. I don't understand any of that. This one has an internal Wi-Fi antenna, although you can get them with external. This one has an external Wi-Fi antenna, although you can get them internal. So that's not the difference. So originally I had ordered a bunch of these. These are like $4.50 each. And I ordered some of these. And these are, I don't know how much they were, maybe $10 each. I don't remember actually. And they arrived and I had my LEDs running with these and everything was cool. But as I was looking through the forums, people kept talking about digiboards and kept talking about digiboards and Uno boards. And that is what this is. Now, this board allows you to have your electricity come in on these two, okay? And then your electricity come out on this block, and your data come out on this block. And then your chip, whether it's this chip or this chip, just sits on top of the board like that. Okay. I didn't realize I needed one of these. You know, it's got your power converting. It's got the fuses here. It protects the line, does a little bit of conditioning, and makes it easier to connect your wires to this compared to, trying to connect it to these pins. So, not knowing I needed a digiboard, And these come in 2 flavors. But not knowing that I needed this, I just ordered the chips. And then when I found out I needed these come with chips. And I couldn't find any place to order these boards that didn't come with a chip already in it. So now I've got a whole bunch of these 8266s that, I don't know, I'll find some use for them. There'll be some LED project out there I'll use them for. But that's the important element I wanted to point out, is that you need the digiboard. And when you order the digiboard, it's going to come with its own chip. So don't order the chips by themselves. Now what you do with this is you have to load the WLED software onto this chip, onto this board. And once you load the WLED software, then it's going to use one of these pins, one of these data pins, to control your LED lights. Now, if you order the digiboard with the controller already in it, instead of buying them separate, and you order it from like Dr. Z, this will come with the WLED software already loaded. Now, it's not that tough to load the WLED software. You just have to, flash this, and it's got a USB, so you connect it to your laptop, and then you download the right bin driver. There's tons of videos out there. I'm not going to show you how to do that. Other people do it much better than me. And that's how you get the WLED software on there. It's just convenient to have it already loaded. Now, something that's interesting, that's got the mini USB on it. But these new ones that are coming, and they're not all this way, but the shipment I received have USB-C. So if you don't have USB-C cables, you're going to have, a little bit of trouble if you want to play around with this, because you can power this off of a phone battery. Those external phone batteries, those external phone chargers, and you just plug the USB into the battery, plug the other end into this port, and this will power up. And even with this one, the same thing. Plug that into the battery, it'll power up, and then you connect your lights going out and the data coming out, and you can run your lights off of a battery like that. Not a big deal. So if you want to test doing it that way, this connector becomes really handy. And the fact that it's USB-C now, luckily I had some USB-C cables. Something else that's a little bit different when you watch the videos, Dr. Z will talk a lot about a pin that exists someplace right in here to control whether this is a 12 volt or a 5 volt board. You want to be careful, because if this is just 5 volts and you send 12 through it, you're going to fry stuff. You're going to fry your lights and probably damage this board. But what they've done now is they got rid of it, and if you look right here, this box right there, it says that it will automatically detect the incoming, and whatever comes in is what goes out. And it also goes all the way up to 24 volts now. So 5 volts, used to be if it was 5 or 12, but it looks like now it goes up to 24. And so that's kind of nice. You watch the video, there's no jumper here that you have to set the voltage. Now, something else, that Dr. Z will explain this a heck of a lot better than I will, is how these first 2 terminals for your power out go to this fuse, the next 2 go to that fuse, and the final 1, 2, 3 each get their own fuses. And these are 5 amp fuses, but apparently you can put 10 in here if you need to, but I don't think you're supposed to go above 10. I think stick with 5, but if 5's not enough, try 10 and don't go beyond that. my plan was just to trim the tree enough so I could get up to that corner. And my wife had other plans. She does not like this tree at all. So she said, take it right down to the knuckles. And now this is the kind of tree that's supposed to grow back if you cut it back to the knuckles. You can manage its height and its shape by just continually cutting it back to the knuckles, which, okay, I did, but I don't think this is the time of the year to trim a tree like that. Anyways, the tree's not going to be a problem anymore. I had a great time with this lift. I'm kind of sad to see it leave. It was a lot of fun to use. Heck of a lot better than standing on a ladder. It was, kind of pricey, like I've mentioned, and I'll share with you all the prices and the breakdown. But one good thing is I did get that tree trimmed, so I saved a couple $100. I don't have to pay somebody to come out and do that. That makes me feel a little bit better about the cost of this. It was a lot of fun to use, saved a whole lot of work and effort for me. So let's talk about some of the tools that you'll need in order to do the lights. So some good cable strippers, a soldering iron. This one's battery operated, comes in handy when you're on a ladder. Some solder, a glue gun. Glue gun comes in handy when you're soldering two LED strips together, because you can replace some of that silicone with the glue gun. Now the glue doesn't hold up as good as the silicone, but it's pretty good. Next tool, some kind of a heat gun, because you have to use shrink tubing. And this one, that's unfortunate, but it's nice, it's small and easy to carry up on a ladder. And you just have to deal with the electric cord. Some wire nuts. Your final solution probably won't use wire nuts, but as you're testing things, wire nuts come real handy. A drill, different size drill bits, and a screwdriver, Phillips head bit. Now to cut the channel and the channel cover, I used these. These are just some tin snips that I had around. They worked really good. Some electric tape. Some cable straps. You might need these as you're, attaching the cable to the house. For example, I attached mine to an eave trough using some cable straps. A multimeter, it isn't absolutely necessary to have a multimeter, but if you get into troubleshooting, these can be very handy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over the costs for this project. Now for me, because I really didn't know what I was doing, I ended up buying a whole bunch of extra things. So when I do these costs, I'll try to identify for you the things that, knowing what I know now, I probably could have done a little bit cheaper. First up, the actual LED strips. I had to buy 8 of these. They come in spools like this, 16 feet long. Total was about $200. Now, the kind I got was, they have to be individually addressable. And the kind I got was the WS2812Bs. Okay, so you got to pay attention to what kind of LEDs you get because only certain ones are compatible. Okay. Next up, I used some 322 22 gauge wire, 3 strands in there, and I used this for the power injection. And the reason I only went with 22 gauge because I had to fit inside of that track with all the rest of the lights. Now, 22 gauge is not all that great for long distances, so it's a trade-off. So again, $26 in power injection wire. Why did I get 3 when power injection only needs 2? Well, I got the data wire there too, just in case I needed to boost data. If I didn't have enough power to get the data all the way through and I needed to boost it, I wanted to make sure I had that 3rd wire. I didn't end up needing to boost the data, but I wanted to play it safe. Next up is the power supply. Now, I went with a 60 amp 5 volt power supply because the lights I'm using are 5 volts. And I went with 60 amps because I just didn't want to have to deal with, having an undersized power supply or then having to go out and get 2 power supplies. I wanted to make sure I had enough juice. I probably could have saved a little bit of money by paying closer attention to that, but a 60 amp power supply was only $27. Now, I got the cheap power supply, and a lot of people will say, oh, you got to get the expensive ones. My opinion, hey, get a cheap power supply. You can order them from Amazon, they can come in like the next day or worst 2 days. If the power supply dies, you get another one. You can burn through maybe 3 power supplies for the price of one of the expensive ones. So you give it a try. What do you really have to lose? Maybe one night of showing your lights. So I went with the cheap power supply. Next up is this aluminum channel. And your LED lights have a sticky back side to them, and they just stick right inside of this aluminum channel. Pretty cool. To get a box of these was $126. With the channels came brackets that went into the house so that this just snapped into the house. So there was a screw and a bracket, so I had to put all those in. And also this cover, which snaps onto the front, and this acts like a diffuser for the light, kind of spreads the light out a little bit, makes it so it's not so fine, and it does really good. And it just snaps in place. Now, it seems like it'd be pretty easy to snap in place, and when you have it all set up in your garage, it's pretty simple just to snap this in place. Let me tell you, when you're up on a garage and you've got the LED in here and you've got the power injection cable running through here and you're trying to snap it in and you're hanging off the side of your house, it's not all that easy. Takes a little bit of patience, but it's definitely doable. Probably the biggest expense was that boom bucket rental so I could get up to the 2nd floor. That was $625, but let me explain why it was so expensive. I got the 50 foot, you can get a 35 foot, it's much cheaper. And I rented it for 24 hours. You can rent it for 4 hours and probably save $100. Also, I got the insurance to go with it, which was $50. And because I don't have a truck, I had to have it delivered, which was $200. So you add all that up, $625. Now, if you want to do it cheaper, get the 35 foot. I think you'd be happier with a 50 footer. And they go, oh, my house isn't 50 feet up. Well, okay, this thing is sitting in the front yard, and it's got to stretch across the front yard and then go up to wherever you are in your house. You'd be surprised how quickly you use up 35 feet when trying to do something like that. You might be happier with a 50 footer. But regardless, you can save some money with the 35 footer. You can save some money if you don't get the insurance, so consider that. And if you have a truck, you can save $200. And lastly, if you plan this out well, you might be able to get it all done in 4 hours and save even more money. So it was expensive for me, might not be quite as expensive for you. Next up, I wanted to have my power supply in the garage and all the controllers in the garage, and then run lines out to where all the LEDs were going to be. Now you can't do that with 22 gauge wire. Some of these spans were 50 feet. You need to have a much better wire, and so I grabbed a 16-3 wire, and you can see this one, it's got some shielding in there, a little bit of shielding. It's got some strength built in there. This is fairly durable. It's black, so it's easy to hide in the house, around the outside of the house. So this is what I got. This worked out to be about 81 cents a foot. And I've got some left over, but not a lot. And when you're doing these runs, you want to leave some left over just for the future, or in case you got to move something, or in case you got to cut and resolder something. So you don't want to get too exact with your cable. But I ended up spending $122 to get this cable. Next up, let's talk about the controllers themselves and the digiquads that the controllers go into. So I got a digiquad board with a controller, and that can run, I think it can run something like 5 different segments of lights. And my house has 3. So I could have ran the entire setup on one digiquad. But not knowing what I was doing, I ordered 3 digiquads and had 1 digiquad for each segment on my house. And I'm kind of happy I did it that way. But, you know, if I was really watching how much money I was spending, I could have done it with 1. Now, the digiquads I ordered from Dr. Z, so they came with WLED already loaded, and these are really nice boards. So I would, highly recommend ordering them from him. If he's out of stock, you can get them from the international store. It's not that much more expensive, but these are the boards you want to be using, in my unprofessional opinion. But they're not cheap. Okay, I think they're like $41 each. And I got 3 of them. Plus there's tax and there's shipping. So I paid $144 for my digiquads. Now, I made a mistake one night. I was tired and I was in a hurry, and I wired up a digiquad incorrectly. And I crossed the streams. I crossed the black and white wires, and I ended up blowing one of my digiquads. Now, the digiquad board was okay. I popped all the fuses in it, but I damaged the digiquad's controller chip. And the digiquad controller chip is like an ESP32 chip. You can order just the ESP32 chip. You can't order just a digiquad board. All the digiquad boards come with the controller on it, but you can order the controllers individually. So that's what I did, and Dr. Z was out of them. I had to order them internationally, and because it was right at Christmas time, I had to pay for expedited shipping to get it here. That controller ended up costing me $32 just for the controller. Now, if you're being careful, you're not going to make this mistake. You're not going to need to spend $32 to rush international controller over to you. And, I was so concerned, what if I make another mistake? I actually ended up ordering 2 more additional controllers. I didn't need the second one, and that was like $11 for the controller. So shipping was pretty expensive to have these rushed over international, but it was a mistake that I made and a cost that you probably won't have to bear. None of these remaining costs are all that substantial. The DigiQuad uses car fuses, and you can put a 5 or a 10 amp fuse in these. If you have car fuses laying around the house, they're probably going to be fine. I didn't, so I went out and I bought some just to have them on hand just in case. It came with a fuse tester. So when I blew my digiboard, that really came in handy, having some spare fuses around and a tester. But like I said, you probably have these things laying around the house. If not, a kit I bought at Lowe's, $17, comes with a whole bunch of fuses and a fuse tester. Some other minor things, electrical tape. You probably have electrical tape around the house. I bought some. Anytime I do a project, that's an excuse for me to get some more tools and some more supplies into my shop. So $2 for the electrical tape. And also same with the solder. You probably, if you're doing any soldering, you probably have tons of solder. But it's an excuse for me to get some more solder into my shop. So that solder was $13. Now I'm going to total it all up on the side of the screen for you, and you can see that it's under $1,400. In fact, it's about $1,339. Consider the quotes that I received, anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 to do this job. I saved a whole lot of money by doing it myself. There were some additional items that I did end up buying that I didn't need, but I didn't know what I was doing, so I bought them. Or there were some things that normally you would have around the house, but I just didn't have them in my shop. Or maybe I have them in my shop, but like the electrical tape, I just want to stock up on it. Okay, something I didn't have was a whole bunch of the heat shrink wrap. And you need a couple different sizes. You need the ones for the wire, and you need the flat ones. The flat ones actually go on the LEDs, so when you're connecting two LEDs together, you can shrink wrap that. You actually put them together, and then at the joint, after you've soldered it at the joint, you can either replace the silicone with a little silicone caulk, or what I did was I just used hot glue, and then you slide that shrink wrap over the top of that, and when you heat it up, that glue is going to heat up again. You get a really nice adhesive connection there. A lot of the pros will tell you that glue isn't very durable. It isn't flexible. You're going to be much happier using the silicone caulk, but I did the hot glue option. So I had hot glue. I had a hot glue gun. No additional cost there, but I did want to get some more shrink wrap and shrink tubing. So I kind of went overboard a little bit and spent $22 on that. Next up, I didn't have a good heat gun for the shrink tubes, so mine was $12. Next up, I bought a lot of controllers that I ended up not using, and I think I've kind of described this in the video. The controllers that I bought that I didn't end up using were about $38. Something else I bought was some wire nuts. I have tons of wire nuts all over the place. But, stocking up for the project, I bought a package. It was a couple of bucks for those. And the last thing I purchased was some 18-2 wire. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to use this for. I thought maybe I would use this for the power injection. But because it was 18-2 and not 18-3, I really didn't want to use it because I thought I might end up needing something for the data channel. Now, because it's 18-2, you can see it's probably thin enough. It would have fit inside that channel and would have been okay. The second thing I thought of using this for was the run between the garage and the start of the LEDs. But as I checked out the forums, people were saying you're going to be better off with a 16.3 than trying to use an 18.2. Now with an 18.2, I would have actually had to run this twice. So it would have been 18.4, right? I would have had to run this cable twice to each one. I need 3 cables. So I would have had to run 4 to get my 3. I don't know. It's crazy. Anyways, but better judgment told me, don't do it this way. Just get some 3 wire out there. And I ended up using 16.3 and also 22.3. But I bought it and it was 15 bucks. And I'm gonna put this in the cupboard and use it for some other project in the future. So all the things that I purchased that I didn't really need, that added up to be $120. So I could have easily saved 120 bucks if I just knew what I was doing, or if I wasn't so concerned about stocking up my shop, I guess. That brings the total project to $1,459. So for under $1,500, I was able to not only do the lights, but I was able to stock up my shop with some extra supplies. So let's talk here for a moment. About $1,300 to put up some Christmas lights, permanent Christmas lights. Is that a really good investment? Well, I don't know. Let's say you, on an average year, you put up $100 worth of Christmas lights, right? Put them around the house, put them wherever you put them. And, maybe you do some Halloween lights or Easter or 4th of July, you do some decorations, things like that. And $100 for Christmas, maybe 30 bucks the rest of the year, 130 bucks a year on Christmas lights. These lights, they're so cheap anymore. You use them one year, the next year you're lucky if you can use them a second time, and you end up replacing a lot of these lights. So 130 bucks a year, you got a 10-year return on investment, ROI. And that's, 10 years, that's not great. But let's consider the real reasons why you might do a permanent light solution. And I got to tell you, I'm not a salesperson. I make no money on this stuff. I could care less whether you put these up or not. But let me just help you out with a little of your decision-making process here. And that is, do you really want to spend the next 10 years climbing up and down ladders, hanging lights, and then climbing back up later on to take them down? In my case, no. So let's take a look here. The statistics of falling off a ladder. I mean, forget the fact that it's a big pain in the butt to have to do this. But the statistics of falling off the ladder say that of people who regularly climb ladders, they have a 20% chance of experiencing a fall. And those falls cost on average about $41,000. Now, that's not all medical bills. People are going to be off from work as a result of falling off ladders. So it's income loss as well. And falling off the ladders, if you fall off, you have up to a 2% chance of a fatality. You could die falling off that ladder. It's a small chance, 2%, granted, but it's still a chance. And falling off a ladder could severely injure you, giving you a life-changing injury or an injury that could take a long time to recover. So, you know what? What's it worth to you not to have to climb the ladder every year to put these lights up and down? So you've got to figure that into your 10-year return on investment on these permanent lights. And it was a fairly good family activity. It was a lot of work. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Standing on top of a ladder after working all day, in the evening, being up there on the lift at night in the dark when it was not all that warm and all I wanted to do was go inside, and crawling through a crappy attic to get these cables run where they needed to go. A lot of that was not fun. But the fun parts were, the whole family was involved in this. We all got together and chipped in and helped out. And so that part of it was kind of encouraging. So I think a lot of it, if you take on a project like this, it's just your attitude. There's going to be sucky parts. There's going to be fun parts. There's going to be parts that, you just have to do, whether you want to do it or not. And so your attitude can make all the difference in this. So I encourage you, get your family involved, give everybody, some kind of role or something they can do so they can be involved in helping out on this, and make it a family activity. All right, that covers everything about our permanent Christmas lights. Thank you for watching.